being here.
Hello.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We are kicking off and starting our day 2 of the Furbabies Summit, and I'm very, very excited to have Jenna Mahan on this morning. Jenna's coming in to talk with us from Embrace. Now, they are a pet insurance company and one I know pretty darn well. So we are really, really happy and excited to have you on to talk about debunking the myths of pet insurance. So good morning, Jenna.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
We're glad to have you.
So how do you want to go about this? I don't know if this is a question and answer, or do you want me to talk a little bit about pet insurance in general first?
We can definitely do that. So can you tell us about
Okay.
Embrace and kind of what you guys do, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So Embrace has been around for about 15 years. It started out as kind of a research contest from a bunch of Wharton Business School graduates. So they thought that this would be a good business idea, and it turns out that they were right. So they left Wharton and then developed Embrace Pet Insurance. And we've, like I said, been here about 15 years. Pet insurance is definitely a growing industry. In the US, there's only about 2% of pets out there are actually insured. In Europe, it's more like 4-5%. So it's definitely growing in the US. It was 1% when I started in pet insurance, which was like 11 years ago. So it's growing. It's doubled. It's still very low, unfortunately, but it's growing. And a lot of people are learning more about it as time goes on. Most pet insurance, actually not most, all pet insurance is reimbursement based. So you can go to any veterinarian you want to go to. There's no like PPOs or HMOs or anything like that where you have to go to a specific veterinarian or a specific type of clinic. You go wherever you want. You pay your bill to your veterinarian, and then the insurance will reimburse you after you submit that claim. So there are a couple companies out there that have some very specific software that can be installed in a clinic where you can pay the vet directly, but that's pretty rare. Most of the companies are all reimbursement based. No pet insurance covers pre-existing conditions. So it's always the best thing to do to get your pet insured while they're young before any pre-existing conditions exist. Because nobody covers those. So it's always a good idea to insure them young and healthy. And that way we can cover the silly things that puppies do too. So ingesting foreign bodies and, those sorts of silly puppy things. So that's pretty much an overview of pet insurance in general. If you're looking at different companies, it's important to compare the coverage and sort of what's important to you. So different companies cover different things. So Embrace covers complementary care. So things like chiropractics and acupuncture, laser therapy, hydrotherapy, things like that. Not all companies cover that. Some companies will cover supplements like joint supplements, and some companies won't. We cover that under our optional secondary wellness plan, which covers like vaccines and spay neuter surgeries and supplements and grooming and flea and tick preventatives and heartworm preventatives, things like that. And not all companies have a program like that. So it's really just important to look at what kind of coverage is important to you, and then compare the companies and see, who has what you want, because all of them are a little bit different in what they cover. I know I saw a question pop up there.
You did. So you were a vet tech before for a long time, and then you came in on the insurance side. How did that transition happen?
Well, in 2008, we had a little bit of a market crash.
No.
So a little bit of a recession. So yes, I've been working in emergency medicine for about 20 years with a short foray into oncology, which was totally depressing and not a great situation to work in all the time. And then the crash happened and the recession. And so I got laid off, and I embraced pet insurance after that. And I haven't looked back. I like to say that like my experience in the veterinary world was necessary for preparing me for this job, because I really love it. It's hard to be like a 50-year-old wrestling Rottweilers and, doing things like that. So I'm happy to be using my vet tech brain for other things, and not punishing my body anymore. So that's how I got here.
That is
And
a
we
fantastic reason.
Yeah, right. We employ about 56 vet techs now. I was the 35th employee of Embrace Pet Insurance, and now we're at about 250 people, and a whole third of those are registered vet techs. So it's a great thing to be able to employ so many people from the veterinary world once they're no longer able to or willing to work in a vet clinic. It's a hard job, so it's really great to be able to employ them elsewhere.
It is a very, very hard job. I can say we appreciate your background in that, because you have a different perspective when you go in from that and you start looking at claims and you start seeing it's more than just words on paper.
Yes.
I can say any time, because I have littles with you guys. I've known of Embrace for a long time. So I think now that you say it, I probably was one of those 1% way back in the day.
Yeah, you were.
And we have a comment, is it bad if I have pet insurance but not human insurance? No, it's not. It's really not.
No, the government will subsidize your health insurance. They will not subsidize your pets.
They will not. We can cross our paws and hope for one day, but it's not there yet. We do. Our animals are worth a house. Not yes, they are. It's kind of scary. Yes, they are. So that actually brings me to a question. With how much Embrace has changed over the years. So you guys have different tiers of policy coverage. And I know there's some on the website. I know there's some things that are different when you call and you talk to the specialists. Can we talk a little bit about how I guess how the process goes? Like, is there, you guys get a lot of cancer claims, obviously.
Yes, we do.
And it's for me, it's been a very easy process going in and getting the prelim and figuring out what their plan is at the vet clinic and what's going to happen, and then sending that out to you guys, and you'll go, okay, this is normal, this is normal, this is normal. And I mean, it's back in maybe a day or two. I mean, the turnaround has just been really phenomenal with it. So could you talk a little bit about the process for that? Is there anything that is ever excluded or and I know pre-existing, so maybe we chat about that as well, but some ideas of things that might be pre-existing or kind of how you guys approach that and what the process is, if that makes sense.
Sure. You talked about a couple different things. So
yes.
Start at the beginning of that. So you talked a little bit about how the policies can be different and the product can be different. And actually, we just have one policy. So we have one accident and illness policy, but you can choose things to customize your policy for your premium. So your premium is based on your pet's age, breed, and location. So the older they are, the more your premium is going to cost. The more coverage you want, the more your premium is going to cost. So if you want $30,000 a year because you live in Los Angeles or New York or, Seattle, where veterinary costs are really high, your premium is going to be a little bit higher. So age, breed, dogs like golden retrievers, which I have, and things like St. Bernards. Those are going to be more costly because they unfortunately get more health problems. So if you have a 2-year-old mutt, you're going to pay a whole lot less in insurance, and you're probably going to pay a whole lot less in healthcare costs down the road because of that, because mixed breeds don't get sick as often. So age, breed, and location. And then you can also affect your premium by changing your maximum payout per year. Most people go with around $10,000 a year. You can go 15, you can go 30, you can go for an unlimited plan. And that's something that's only available if you call in. That's not on the website. You can also choose your own deductible. So right now I have old pets and I have a lot of them. So to keep my premium a little bit lower, I have a high deductible. So my deductible is $1,000 a year. So I won't start getting reimbursement until I've already paid out of pocket $1,000 per each pet. So really my plan is more of a catastrophic plan. And then I have 80% reimbursement. So the more reimbursement you have, the more your premium is going to be. But if you're looking for a lower plan, you can go with 80% reimbursement or 70% reimbursement to be able to change your premium around. Now, no matter what premium you end up with, what coverage you end up with your deductible and your copay and all of that, you get the same product. So you will always get the same coverage, no matter what type of policy you end up with. So we cover anything that's not pre-existing. We cover, like I said, the complementary care. So acupuncture, hydrotherapy, physical therapy after surgery or illness or orthopedic issue. We cover all of those things for any of those policies. The only things the policy doesn't cover is like genetic testing. If it's genetic testing for an illness, then we cover it. If we don't cover pregnancy, whelping, or queening. So if your pet's not spayed or neutered and gets pregnant, that's not going to be covered by the policy. We don't cover organ transplants, which is not very common in veterinary medicine. That's really the only things we don't cover. The insurance policy itself doesn't cover like supplements, and it doesn't cover like prescription diets, but those things can be covered under our additional wellness plan. So that's kind of more like an HSA type of program where you pay into it and you get more out of it. So you pay in a certain amount and you'll be able to get more reimbursement than what you pay into the policy. It's good for budgeting, and it's good for getting a little bit more money for your pet's wellness than you would normally get. So that's the policy overall. Like I said, pre-existing conditions are not covered. We do differentiate between pre-existing conditions that are temporary and ones that are permanent. So if your pet had one ear infection pre-policy, that ear infections aren't going to be covered for about 12 months. Well, for at least 12 months. As long as no other ear infections or dermatological issues happen within that 12-month period, that exclusion expires off of the policy, and we could cover things down the road that happen with the ears or the skin. So that would be a temporary pre-existing condition. Now, if your dog has diabetes pre-policy, then that's a permanent thing. That's not going away. So that would be more of a permanent condition. So we wouldn't be able to cover diabetes or anything related to diabetes throughout the whole of the policy. So that's kind of, I'm going to spill some Coke here.
Sip of water, everyone. Hydrate. Remember to hydrate today.
Yes, exactly.
We get so excited, we forget.
It's very sunny here and rather warm. So
definitely hydrate.
Yeah.
But that's a great dive into what the different policies that are out there and what they offer. We do have a couple of questions, and then I have another one for you. Okay. What is the biggest myth that you want more pet parents to know?
Don't wait. I think a lot of people, even some veterinarians, are under the impression that you get pet insurance when you need pet insurance. And that's definitely a myth. You want to get pet insurance way before you need it, because by the time you actually need it, that whatever you need it for is going to be pre-existing. And we read medical notes from veterinary clinics constantly. And we'll see veterinarians actually say, your dog has arthritis now. you should get pet insurance to cover that. And that is just not how that works. So once the pet is already showing signs of something or on medication for something, that's not something we can cover. But if you get pet insurance before any of those things happen, and it's always going to happen. Every pet is going to get arthritis somewhere or an illness that's otherwise they would live forever. And if that were true, that would be great. But we know that that's not true. So every pet is going to need healthcare down the road at some point. So getting it while your pet is still healthy and doesn't have pre-existing conditions, that I think is the most important part of pet insurance, in totality. That's the most important thing to know, is that when you need it, it's not going to work for you, and you're going to be sad, and you're going to be mad at us because we can't cover the thing that you want covered. And that's just not how pet insurance works, unfortunately.
We have one question. Jenna, would it be beneficial if I got insurance on my cats that are 9 years old?
Yeah, as long as they're healthy. And I mean, you can certainly insure a cat who's 16, just knowing that when you're going into that policy, that nothing that's happened before is going to be covered. But if your cat is, I have a 13-year-old cat who's perfectly healthy, and I have a 6-year-old cat who's a lemon, and they're both insured. She's probably not going to live, and she's just a lemon, and that's okay. You just have to go into the policy with your eyes wide open that, something that's already occurred is not going to be covered. But my 13-year-old cat has been insured since he was probably 8, and I've never used the insurance, but I'm terrified to drop it because that's when I'm going to need it. So I'm not going to drop it. And cats are really very inexpensive to insure. Their policies are between $12 and $20 a month. So even for older cats, I mean, depending on where you live, and a purebred cat, a Persian is going to cost more, a Himalayan is going to cost more. But if you have a cat that you found in a car engine, or in a dumpster, that cat is going to be very cheap to insure, and it's totally worth getting it.
I'm giggling over the lemon because
She's a lemon. She's diabetic. She has hyperthyroidism. She has renal failure. She has a heart murmur, and she has some dermatological issues. So she's on allergy medication, and boy, does she love getting pills. So I struggle every single day. That's my dumpster cat.
My goodness.
That's a foster fail. I took in a litter of, I think there was 9 kittens, and she was the shy one that hung out under the bed all the time. And I was like, I'm going to save her. Yeah, she's a lemon, but I love her, so it doesn't matter. Right.
If I may, when we're talking, one thing that I wanted to touch on when we're talking about getting the coverage before you need it, because this is such a huge thing. And then we have a question about explaining the process for getting a claim pre-approved for coverage, or what the steps are. One thing I wanted to touch on before I forget, a lot of fur baby parents that I know out there say, oh, insurance is just so expensive. I can't afford this. And so I'm just going to save a little money every month, right? Well, oftentimes that save a little money every month is maybe $100 or $200 or whatever, or less than that. It's just like a little savings pot that they put the money into. What I've seen over experience is that what they're saving essentially would cover the premiums for the year based on which deductible they get, which there's so many options, but essentially it would cover the premiums for the year, but they would have access to so much more in insurance and protection than they would if they were trying to pay it out of pocket. So the caveat was they would go to the ER and go, oh my gosh, I just had a $1,500 bill and I've saved $5 over the last few months. And, I didn't think this could happen, and I didn't know how expensive things were. And it's like you said, we don't know until we get there. And then it's a shock, because there's so much more advances in medical technology and ways that they can treat our fur babies. So I'm really glad that you said that, get that before you need it, because that's something that it doesn't limit our options and our choices as much. We don't have to make decisions so heavily based on what our finances are at the time, because emergencies happen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if we had go ahead.
You would just walk into that clinic and say, do what you think is necessary. Do what you need to do. You don't have to hem and haw at the estimate they give you and say, ooh, well, let's start with the blood work. Let's hold off on the x-rays, to see if that finds the answer. You don't have to make those decisions. You don't have to make decisions based on like, should I pay my mortgage this week or can I go to the vet? Those decisions are out the window because that you're going to be reimbursed after your deductible. And most people choose a $200 deductible. So that's nothing. That's one visit for your infection at this point. Our average claims are, I think we're up to about $387 is our average claim out of all the claims we do in a year, which is a lot of claims. So if you have $400 in that savings account, once a month, good for you. I'm not that kind of saver. I need the insurance policy.
Well, and a lot of people simply can't, and things are so different now that it's just, or they're on fixed incomes. And so that's one thing that at least you can bank on for the year. The policy is there and it's a nugget that you can take care of. We have a question. Can you explain the process for getting a claim pre-approved for coverage or what the steps are?
So we don't actually request or require pre-approval. You can get a pre-approval done if you're concerned about coverage. So if your pet has a pre-existing condition and you're not sure if this thing that's going on could be related, or you just want to know what your reimbursement would be with your deductible taken out and your copay taken out. You can certainly send in a pre-certification. All you have to do is print out a pre-certification form, put the diagnosis or the clinical sign. So if your pet's vomiting, you put down vomiting and you send in that estimate. And then within usually about one business day, we'll be able to tell you what we're going to be able to reimburse you for that condition. But like I said, we don't require pre-certifications. So if your pet's been seen for vomiting and vomiting is covered, that's a condition we've covered before on your policy, you can go confidently into your vet hospital and say, yeah, do a CT. Go ahead, do those x-rays, do an MRI. And that you're going to be reimbursed by your policy. Submitting a claim is actually a lot easier than submitting a pre-certification. There's no claim form required anymore. It used to be that you had to print out a claim form. You had to have your vet fill out the diagnosis back in the old days, but now we have an app for that. So you can use the app or you can go into your My Embrace portal and all you have to do is upload your invoice. So you obviously will leave the vet clinic with an invoice or they'll email it to you and that's fine too. You can upload a PDF. You can take a picture of your invoice. You upload that, you tell us where it's from, the date of service, and then you give us the diagnosis or the clinical signs that your pet is observing. So vomiting, ear infection, diarrhea, cranial cruciate ligament tear. Those are actually our top 5 diagnoses. Allergies, yes, dermatological issues, cruciate ligament tears, and then cancers. Those are my phone is falling. Those are our top diagnoses. So you put that in there, you hit submit claim, your claim is automatically set up, you get a claim number. And from there, it takes, if it's not your first claim, it should take less than 5 days for you to get an answer and be reimbursed. If it's your first claim, we have to look over your medical history, things like that. So it can take a little bit longer. If we have the medical history on file, it should take less than 10 days to get that answer. If we don't have the medical history on file, we have to go bug your vet clinics to get it, which they are busy, very, very busy places. So occasionally they don't send it on the first request. So we may have to ask for it a couple times. But as soon as we get it, we'll go through your claim, go through the medical history, see what's pre-existing, if anything, and then process your claim.
I just wanted to add that the process for that is very, very streamlined.
Yeah.
Very fast.
So we changed underwriters. So we're an insurance company, but the policy is underwritten by another insurance company, and actually a really good one. They're A+ rated. They're a great company. So we changed underwriters a whole bunch of years ago, and they were like, yeah, we can make this easier. Other one had a whole bunch of stipulations. We have to get the diagnosis straight from the vet. We need this, we need that. And this one's like, yeah, the pet parent knows what's going on with their pet. We're fine to take the information from them. So things got a lot easier in the past couple years, when we could make some changes to the portal and just forego that claim form. The less paper we use, the better. So much easier now. Yes.
Can you talk about, so for pet owners who are thinking about getting their babies insured, so the process for starting a policy completely. So I can say in past experience, when I knew, okay, I've got a new fur baby, I know I want to get them insured. I kind of know where I want to go with it, but I looked on the website, I made a phone call, talked about the different options available. And then you can go to your vet and go ahead and get them seen and get I think you guys call it a wellness exam to get done.
Yeah. Your pet has to have been seen within the past 12 months. That's it. You don't have to have an exam. It's not like you getting like life insurance or anything. Mm-hmm. We don't have to have an exam right away. It just has to have been seen within the past 12 months. Mm-hmm. To be able to get a valid insurance policy. I like to say that we don't know if your pet has 3 eyes or 6 limbs until a veterinarian writes it down. So we just don't know until your pet's been seen by a vet. So as long as you have an exam within the past 12 months, you're kosher. You can sign up online. It's very easy. You just put in the information, your zip code, your email, all of that general stuff, your pet's age and breed, and you click buy policy. If you have questions, the best thing to do is call in. We have some great pet insurance advisors. So legally, everyone who sells pet insurance has to be licensed in pet insurance. Not all companies follow that rule, and they've gotten in trouble for it in the past. So all of our people are licensed. They are very good at their jobs, and they can answer any questions you have. We do, unfortunately, have some significant hold times right now. So, just be prepared for that. We have some great hold music. We'll get to you. We'll answer your questions for sure. We have an email address. It's very easy to remember. hello@embracepetinsurance.com. So if you can't get through on the phone, please just email us. We will get back to you, usually within 24 hours. We do have a chat function coming up really soon. If you have a policy now, and you have a current claim and you have a question about your claim, you can chat us live during business hours. We will be opening that up for more, for people who don't have policies and for other subjects, but right now it's just for current claims. We're getting there with the technology. We're trying to do all of the avenues of communication. So you can call us, you can email us, you can submit a question on the website. A lot of people will submit questions on Facebook. That's great too. We have people standing by to answer those questions.
This is very true. I can attest to that. So you had mentioned earlier that your average claim amount is $387. Can you share with us, do you have any stories of some of the ones that were really, really high? Or if they're the ones that are coming out of the cancers, or if there's particular illnesses that you see that come up more often with those claims as well,
for sure.
Like some of the crazy ones.
So cancers will often have a lot of claims, but nothing particularly high dollar. So like if a mass has to be removed, certainly that can go a couple $1,000s. But then like chemo treatments will be a couple hundred a visit. So your total will go up throughout the year for sure of how much you're spending, but you're probably not going to have a $20,000 claim right off the bat. The things we see that for, the biggest one I remember was a dog who was hospitalized for Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Mm-hmm. So that's a disease that's real common in the Rocky Mountain area. Well, this dog lived in New York City. So the veterinarian was not looking for Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So the pet was hospitalized for quite a long time. It might have also gotten MRSA, if I remember correctly. And that was about a $30,000 claim. So that poor dog went through a lot of things, but totally recovered. We did a claim story about it. I think it was a corgi. It lost a lot of hair because of the MRSA infection, but it did really good afterwards. Another one that's common to be high dollar is toxicity claims.
Mhm.
So go palms. They're very, very toxic. They're very common, like on the West Coast. They're good landscape plants. They're very pretty, but they will kill your dog. So be very careful. I think our highest claim ever was $45,000, and it was due to sago palm toxicity. That's a bad one. So I've seen some really big rattlesnake bite claims, because rattlesnake bites, very toxic to the skin cells. So even if they clear up the infection with antivenin, then you can have a localized reaction where it necroses the tissue, and it's a real big bad thing. So rattlesnake claims can be very high. Our most common, like high dollar claim, like $6,000 to $8,000, is cruciate ligament tears. Those things are so bad. They are so painful for your dog. And then they need a very big, bad surgery, put plates and screws and things in there, usually only done by a specialist. So, that's going to be higher dollar right off the bat. And then they have a lot of recovery and hospitalization and physical therapy that has to happen. So those will usually run you $6,000 to $8,000. And that's in a normal middle class area. If you're in Seattle, you're probably looking at $10,000. So those are some crazy claim stories we've had. We've seen a lot of crazy ones. Dogs get to a lot of things.
If I had $1 for every time I say, don't put that in your mouth, I wouldn't need insurance. But they do, they get into everything. Cats are not far behind them. If you think for a second, it's basically childproof your house, because they will put anything in their mouth. Yeah. To what you just said, and I think this is really, really valuable. Now I've heard of some of the high dollar ones, but I've not heard the 45,000 one. And that just blew my mind completely. There are varying levels of policy coverages you can explore out there. And so I see sometimes also, fur baby parents are like, well, I'm just going to get the littlest thing, the smallest thing, something small, maybe it's $5,000, maybe it's $10,000. The difference, and correct me if I'm wrong or speak to that, if the differences in the policy amounts are not that vast. And it when they were educating me, they said, it's a lot easier to start higher because you can always come down. But if you go up, you have to go back through underwriting, and that might prove challenging. Can you talk a little about that?
Sure. It may only cost you a couple dollars a month. Like, I know when I look at my car insurance, you can see, like, if you raise this a little bit, it's going to cost you $2 a month. And that's easy. That's $2. It's not even a Starbucks, for heaven's sake, and we don't have a tool like that. I don't think any pet insurance companies really do. But if you talk to, a pet insurance advisor on the phone, they can do all those little things for you and see exactly how much all these little tweaks would cost you. And some people will definitely go for like a $5,000 policy. It's the bare minimum. It's going to be a really low premium. But if your dog tears a cruciate ligament, that's the whole $5,000 in one pop. And if that's okay with you, if you'd rather have that, we call that a catastrophic plan. You just need it for the big bad thing that you're terrified of. You just need it for if your cat blocks. That's always one of my terrifying days. If my cat blocks, that's probably going to cost $2,000 or $3,000 just in one visit to the emergency clinic. If your dog get hit by a car, that's perfect. If that is your fear, a catastrophic policy is the perfect thing for you. If your fear is the ongoing illnesses like allergies, where you're going to spend $150 or $250 every single visit to the vet, and that you're going to go every couple of weeks for a while, you may want to think about that $10,000 policy, the $15,000 policy. If you live in a really expensive area, the higher the coverage you can get, the better. And your policy, your premium is going to go up over time. So Veterinary inflation. We all know inflation is happening right now. So veterinary inflation is at an all-time high. As your pet ages, they're more apt to have an illness. That's just reality. So your premium will go up as your pet ages. Those things are a given. Like your premium will go up as your pet ages. So if you can start with higher coverage, if you need to down the road, you can reduce your coverage and pay a little bit less premium without having your policy start over again. But if, like you said, you start really low because you want the low premium, my pet's not sick, I don't need to pay too much for this. But then your pet does have a problem where you think you might spend $10,000 in a year, then if you try to change your policy, you do have to go through underwriting again. Those things that are already existing will be pre-existing conditions and wouldn't be covered by your policy. So that's pretty important to note. So I think it's good to go into it, setting a budget and saying, this is what I can afford, and get the best coverage that you can afford right out the door. And then you won't be caught in that situation down the road where you're stuck and you're not getting what you need out of the policy.
Thank you, because that is a really big part of that. We have a question. Deborah asks, what percentage of claims do you deny? Also, does or can insurance policies include preventative care like dentals and annual examinations?
Okay, so we follow this statistic very closely. We never say deny. It's a bad word in our business. We do not cover approximately 4% of claims. So that can be 4% due to they don't have the coverage that they're trying to get. So we have an accident only policy, which we don't recommend too often because it really only covers accidents. But if you have an accident only policy and you're trying to get coverage for diabetes, which is not an accident, that wouldn't be covered. So that 4% of claims contains all of that information too. So really it's just pre-existing conditions, and it's a very low percentage. I forget the other question.
Does or can insurance policies include preventative care like dentals and annual examinations?
Yes. So the insurance will not ever cover that because that's accident and illness insurance, and that's not preventative care. We have that separate plan called the wellness plan, wellness rewards. And that's more like the HSA, but that covers preventative stuff like vaccines, spays and neuters. It covers dew claw removal. It covers dental cleanings. We do cover dental illnesses under the illness policy, and we cover dental accidents like broken teeth under the accident illness policy. But if you're getting a routine cleaning, that's a wellness item, that's a routine care thing, and that would be covered only under our wellness rewards policy. Most pet insurance companies do not cover anything of that nature unless they have a separate wellness policy. There is one exception to that, and I think it's called the Nationwide Whole Pet. It tends to be a lot higher in premium because they are covering all of those things in the policy, and there's a lot of asterisks, so you can only get 2 wellness exams a year. You can only get, 1 fecal exam, things like that. So it's not a bad plan at all. You just got to really read all the details about it. Ours is literally, if you choose the $250 wellness plan, you get $250 worth of reimbursement for anything that's wellness related. We don't, there's no asterisks. We'll cover whatever.
I also wanted to ask you, for our listeners, Embrace has an interesting deductible policy, and if, correct me if I'm mistaken, but if you go through a year and you don't need to file a claim, or your baby doesn't get sick, and you don't have to have anything paid out, your deductible, don't you get a sort of a credit for that, or it rolls forward?
Yeah, it's called the Healthy Pet Deductible. So each year that you don't receive any money from us, you can even claim. So I can make a claim, and if it's under my deductible and I didn't receive any money, my deductible is going to go down by $50 for the next year. So after 4 years of not having a claim, if you had a $200 deductible, you now have no deductible. So you definitely, that is a very valuable thing. And it happens a lot, especially when you get a pet insured young, and you don't really need that insurance right away. You're saving it for the day when you
Did we freeze?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forever, and except for that lemon cat, none of my pets have ever had a payout. Like I said, I'm terrified to drop the insurance, that I'm going to need it, then someone's going to get hit by a car, someone's going to get blocked, all these things. So I may be losing internet shortly.
Okay.
So
well, we are.
I drop off.
What? Oh no, Jenna, if you can hear me, we are actually right on our time. So if the internet's going to go out, it's okay. If you're in there with us, I will say, for everybody else listening, this was such a valuable session with Jenna from Embrace, and we really thank her for coming on to share about this with everybody. We'll post the link to the site so you guys can check it out and get in touch. But again, it's a hedge against future expenses coming, and we all know healthcare expenses go up every year. So sometimes it is, if you're able to do it, it is really better to try to aim higher, because you can always back it down, but it's good to have that in place, and it's a good buffer. And I can tell you personally, it's saved a lot of money, and it's made some very difficult choices easier to bear. So this was a wonderful session. Thank you so much. So I believe that we have, it is 10:15. And we should have our next panelist coming on. Oh, pardon